Let me tell you something. Your reputation is like your virginity. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so I took that to heart when I moved out here. My reputation for me is everything, and especially being on social media, being a podcaster. Like, I take my reputation very seriously. And so that's really what I did. And I picked up my first flip within about 4 months as well. And that was one of the first big hurdles. I bought it, trusted the realtor, trusted the contractor, and kind of just pushed it off to the side. I was like, I'm busy doing engineering. I'm not going to watch this as much as I should. I know what I'm doing. I've flipped houses and I've never lost money on a deal before. But I had trust with the contractors, the realtor that I had out in California. I didn't have that out here. They seemed like good guys, and for all intents and purposes, they are good guys. But if you don't watch somebody carefully, you don't set that expectation and then hold them to it, things can go sideways very quickly, because in this business, nobody's going to care about your business more than you do. 100%. And if you let other people, quote unquote, put trust in them to take care of you, it ain't going to happen. Not because they're bad people, but that's just how humans work.
You're listening to the Real Estate Runway podcast, powered by Quattro Capital, where we're all about alternative business and investment strategies to help you amplify life and maximize wealth. Here's your host, Chad, the investment maverick.
All right. Real Estate Runway family, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. I have missed you guys. It's been a couple of weeks since I've recorded, but probably only a week since you heard an episode. Thanks for that. So I am here with my good friend, Matthew Haggerty, goes by Ace. He is also a Nashville boy here. And funny enough, we met over the airwaves. We have not met in Nashville. He's on the east side. I'm on the west side. So we'll bring it together and have a good conversation today. But folks, before we get into this show, if you get any value out of this or anything Quattro produces or here at Real Estate Runway, just interact with it. Whatever you're watching it on, like it, subscribe it, share it, pass it along to someone who needs to hear it. It's the only way this stuff grows, and we don't pay to market this stuff or anything like that. So it's all word of mouth. Do your part, pay it forward. All right. Now, without further ado, Ace, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Chad, and I really appreciate you having me on. For all your listeners, subscribe, follow, like, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major players, because I'm a podcaster myself. And as both Chad and I know, it's really because of the listeners that shows make it, because we spend a lot of time, energy on what we do. We love it. We give back. I'm pretty sure that's why we both started doing podcasts. And I just love it, man. I'm so happy to be on your show. I'm so happy that you're a fellow Nashvilleian. And yeah, I'm excited. Let's get going.
Let's do it. Well, before we get into it, these guys and girls have heard my voice so many times. They've not heard yours yet. So give me a little bit of the rundown, man. Tell me who you are, where you came from, how you got into real estate, what your story is, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Awesome. Well, I'm originally a structural engineer. So Chad, if you ever need a structural engineer in town, I'm your man.
That's good
to know. That's how I started out my career, structural engineer. I listened to my parents. I did really well. Went to UC Davis in California, and then Berkeley after that, got my master's. And then I started off like a lot of people that go the college route. I started in a career. I started working as a structural engineer for a consulting firm out in California. And I learned very quickly within a couple years, probably a couple months if I actually listened to myself. But in a couple years, I was just miserable, sitting behind a desk all day, seeing the people way above me that have been doing it 25, 30 years, and just seeing their life and how miserable they were. And, you know, when I look back at parts of my life, there's always something that intervenes. Call it a higher power. I call it God. But a friend of mine who was a realtor came up to me. He's like, "Hey, Matt, I've got this house under a short sale. You want to flip it?" And I'm like, he's throwing stuff at me like, short sale, flip it. All I know is, Chip and Joanne Gaines, Fixer Upper. And I'm like, sure, that looks like a lot of fun. Let's try it. I run construction crews. I know a little bit about the whole construction side of things. might as well. Let's go for it. So long story short, we get this REO. And for anybody that's listening that doesn't know what that is, back about 10 years ago, there was, after the Great Recession, a lot of bank-owned homes were essentially sold because during the Great Recession, a lot of people lost their homes. And so we were able to do what was called a short sale, prevent somebody from being fully foreclosed.
English.
It is, yeah, yeah. I think it's my second language, but we ended up flipping the house 90 days. The reason it took 90 days is because you couldn't sell it a short sale for 90 days. You had to hold on to it and have it seasoned for a few months. So yeah, we flipped the house. We ended up netting $90,000. So we each got 45 grand. And you would think at that time, getting 45K, that was about half my salary for a full year, doing it within 90 days. And it was a pretty easy flip that I would have jumped fully into real estate, but that did not happen. Me being an engineer, trying to play it safe, it took a few years. So that was the first time I had done it. Since then, I did another flip. I did a buy and hold. I was just doing one to two projects at a time because I was working full time. And then fast forward about 6 years ago, I moved to Nashville and I just jump in full time. Engineering business, full time. Real estate business, full time. And since then, I've been very fortunate. I have flipped over a few hundred houses. I have short-term rentals now. I had long-term rentals, things like that. I got into development here in Nashville. I've built about a dozen houses, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing what I've been able to grow pretty darn quickly, either by myself or with partnerships. But anytime I come onto a show, I always tell people, I'm the guy that you interview when you want to know what not to do in real estate, because I have made every sort of mistake that you can possibly do. And I've learned a lot over the years, ups and downs, but looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love it. It's the scars and stripes method, right? You're going to get them one way or another. You can either learn them or you can make them, but you're going to learn, right? And I love that you said you're not only an engineer. We have that in common. I was a mechanical engineer for a long time prior
Nice.
to getting into this world. But I guess tell me how Nashville became the area to come to, because you kind of, if you started doing this post recession and you came to Nashville, you either ignorantly made a great choice or you intentionally made a great choice. But either one, Nashville was a great choice. It had all the right fundamentals. Jobs were coming in, people were coming in, house pricing was low relative to the people coming in and where they were coming from, and still is, truth be told. I think it's kind of equilibrating. But, what brought you to Nashville? What went into that decision instead of wherever you were before doing your first flips?
Once again, brother, it's divine intervention. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
My girlfriend at the time, who later became my wife, went to Belmont, loved it out here. We did the distance thing for a few years while she was out here getting her doctorate. And she moved back to California, and she was essentially like, hey, I want to move back. And it was essentially between Nashville and Austin, because me growing up as a California kid, I was like, well, if I move to the South, I want to move somewhere that's at least a little bit progressive. And we won't get into politics and all of that, but that's where my mindset was at the time. And we settled with Nashville. So we just moved here. I sold my house in California, bought a house out here cash, because cost of living at that time specifically was much, much lower. And so I was blessed enough to be able to do that. And so that's what got me here. Fast forward 6 years, I'm divorced now. So it can't, when I look back, it's still a blessing. It was still what needed to happen, because once I broke away, I never thought I was going to leave California, but once I broke away from it, man, there's no looking back. My buddies, friends, family, after the divorce were like, hey, are you coming back to California? And I was like, no, man, I got roots here. I might be divorced. I might have to liquidate a bunch of my properties because of it and all of that. But at the same time, you know what? I'm here for a reason. And so I'm just so blessed to be here in Nashville. I'm blessed to have made that move, even if it wasn't my choice at the time. There's always somebody that's looking out for me. And the more I pay attention to those signs, the more good things happen.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, and a lot of times I find myself asking, Lord, what do you want me to know? And what do you want me to do in this situation? He never owes you why, you probably can't
Yeah.
comprehend why, but what do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? And it sounds like you definitely listened in that moment. You came to Nashville and it was a good story for you. So you came to Nashville, you're here and you've got a couple of houses under your belt. You're still a structural engineer. So,
Yep.
you went to town on the active side of things, generating revenue. You had your own structural engineering company and you were flipping houses, but you were not yet
Yes.
building. You did not yet have Airbnbs.
Nope.
So kind of walk me through
Yeah.
and feel free to sprinkle in some mistake pixie dust along the way if you have some learnings there. I'd love to hear them as they come fresh.
What
But walk
mistakes?
me
No.
through, okay, yeah, you started the business, you got that off the ground, then you kind of also pursued probably with your excess cash, you're flipping, and then it progressively grew from there. So let's just kind of walk through those stages and help the audience understand that you didn't become what you are overnight. And we have a saying here in Nashville, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. The musicians love that one, right? No one knows your name for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you're an overnight success. So walk
That's
me
right.
through that 10 years.
Well, when I first moved here, I thought I was gonna be flip or flop Nashville guy, which is really funny because I ended up being the engineer that worked with the flip or flop Nashville couple, um,
That's awesome.
which was pretty darn cool. But yeah, when I first moved here, I didn't want to get a job. I knew that. I knew what I didn't want to do. And so what did I start doing? Well, I started making connections with the local RIA. I started making connections on Facebook. Facebook was phenomenal to put my name out there. And I saw for any business, you have to fulfill a need. And the need, as you know, here in Nashville, structural engineers are a dime a dozen. It's a hot market. It's been hot the entire 6 years I've been here. It is
The
not
whole
slowed down. When
cycle.
I first,
Yeah.
when I got here, I was driving around. I was like, man, there's a rehab or a tear down almost on every single block in this town. No joke. And it has been going like that since. It's absolutely insane out here. And
Well,
so I was
and
like,
Ace,
well,
just to tap into that real quick, I mean, we are in 2024 where interest rates on new mortgages are 7%. And a
it
buddy
ain't
of
going
mine told
down.
me he lost a house and got outbid by 50 grand on it. So it hadn't slowed down here.
No, no, not at all. And so I saw, instead of seeing a problem, I saw an opportunity. I was like, hey, I've been doing structural engineering my whole life. Do I love it? Ugh. I love real estate, but I know engineering very well and I can add a tremendous amount of value. And so that first month that I was here, I didn't know a single person besides my wife at the time. Didn't know a single person in town. That first month I made $0 in engineering. That second month I made 5,000. Fast forward a couple more months, I made 10,000. And I told myself that this business is going to provide for my family and it's going to provide for my investing. And I used it to build my network as well. So going to the RIAs, talking to contractors, talking to other people that are investors that are actively involved, wholesalers, the whole thing. I would offer my services as a structural engineer, not expecting anything from them, but to network and get myself out there, get my name out there. This is still a pretty small town, especially in our industry, and
Yeah.
word spreads like wildfire. And my old mentor, when I was working for a construction company in California, had told me, and here's another nickname, I was called Mattress. I don't know what it is about all these nicknames I get in my life or alter egos, but he's like, Mattress, let me tell you something. Your reputation is like your virginity. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so I took that to heart when I moved out here. My reputation for me is everything, and especially being on social media, being a podcaster. Like, I take my reputation very seriously. And so that's really what I did. And I picked up my first flip within about 4 months as well. And that was one of the first big hurdles. I bought it, trusted the realtor, trusted the contractor, and kind of just pushed it off to the side. I was like, I'm busy doing engineering. I'm not going to watch this as much as I should. I know what I'm doing. I've flipped houses and I've never lost money on a deal before. But I had trust with the contractors, the realtor that I had out in California. I didn't have that out here. They seemed like good guys. And for all intents and purposes, they are good guys. But if you don't watch somebody carefully, you don't set that expectation and then hold them to it, things can go sideways very quickly, because in this business, nobody's going to care about your business more than you do. 100%.
Preach.
And
Yeah.
if you let other people, quote unquote, put trust in them to take care of you, it ain't going to happen. Not because they're bad people, but that's just how humans work. So did that first flip, bought it too high, rehab was too high, sale wasn't selling at the time because my comps weren't that good. And so I just made mistake after mistake after mistake. And I found myself 2 weeks before my wedding day not being able to pay my vendors because all my money was tied up. This house was still on the market. I kept dropping it. It wasn't selling. And thankfully, I was able to sell another house for almost break even to be able to pay for my wedding to actually happen. But at the same time, that first deal, that first flip, I lost 35 grand on. And that was the first time that I really got a great education in real estate, because they say you're going to pay for it one way or another. And I paid 35 grand to have a rude awakening in what I really needed to do. And that learning lesson propelled me after that. That was like a launching pad. Things just freaking shot through the roof after that, because there was so much pain on losing that money, possibly not even having my wedding, that I used that to really tighten things up. I learned a whole bunch of things. And after that, that's when things really, some great deals, a lot of money was made after that.
I want to dive into a few things you said right there, folks. And just if we kind of scroll back to the beginning of this particular segment, what Ace very eloquently mentioned is, hey, I started this business, which is something I know how to trade time for money, right? And it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was you. You didn't have a large staff. You were the engineer. You were doing the work, right? So it's kind of sole proprietorship, right? So this is you trading time for money.
Solopreneur.
But
Yep.
Yeah, solopreneur. But you knew how to do it. It was a trade that was needed. It was in demand. And the words he said was, this helped me pay for my investing. I hear people say this a lot. And if this is you, like, don't be upset when I say this, but do not quit your job to go start investing, right? You want to use your income stream and funnel that not into pretty things or consumer credit or things of that sort. You want to funnel that money that you're trading your valuable time for into chunks of cash that you can do these investments with. And then you're going to get a couple of them wrong. Ace walked through how, look, I was busy over here. I trusted this. And again, not that they were bad people, but they didn't have his best interest at heart like he did. And you learn some painful lessons. I've learned lessons like that as well, where if you don't have your eye on the ball, you're going to swing and you miss, or you're not going to swing at all and you're going to get struck out just watching, right? So you have to stay on top of things. And that's where he started getting his processes, his metrics about them. And I bet as you can tell, once he put his eyes on the target, on the prize, and he focused on it, he was able to then grow to the next level, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. So it doesn't come without mistakes, but please don't be the one that says, I'm going to get rid of this great income stream because I want to be financially free, and then have one mistake and put yourself in financial ruin.
That's right.
So back to you, Ace. Going on. So now we've had a wedding, right? We've successfully avoided crisis there. Had a couple of mistakes. We all do, right? And so now you've got your structural engineering business. You're focused on the details of the flipping business now. Where does it go from there?
Yeah. So I just at some random project that I picked up, I met a guy and he was very charismatic. We clicked on a lot of different levels, and he was like, hey, I've got this stuff in Columbus, Georgia. Would you want to do essentially what turned into a turnkey rental operation? And so we were doing the Burr method before it was the Burr method. So we would buy houses out of state, we'd fix them up, we'd get them rented, and we'd either refinance them or package them up and sell them essentially to California investors, people that wanted out of state turnkey property. So we became essentially almost overnight a turnkey operation business. Now, the great thing about the beginning of that business, and that's where I got the majority of my flips, was from that out of state. We were in Georgia. We ended up doing stuff here in Tennessee. We were in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. We were in the Fort Worth, Texas area. And there were so many amazing things that happened because of that business. Being able to run a company where you're not living there. I would go there, a couple times a month. I would go to Ohio or Georgia or what have you. But you really have to trust the people that you put in place there and check in on them and make sure that they're coming back to you. And so that was the business where I really learned about how to scale and how to make things a lot bigger. And I wouldn't have done that because still in my mind, in my mindset at that point, I was like ones and twos and do a couple here, a couple there. It was definitely more, but it was very linear what I was doing. The guy that I partnered with, man, he was like, I picked up a package of 25 houses. Let's go to town. I'm just like, what is going on? Like, he just expanded my mind. And partnerships can be so beautiful because I teamed up with a guy who was great at finding properties. He was great at selling properties. And I was great at pretty much the middle of the project, rehabbing them. So I had a whole system, the type of flooring, the type of paint, all of our houses looked pretty similar. So every construction budget we had was very similar, give or take. And it was kind of like just a assembly line type of operation. And that was awesome because I learned so much. I'm buying all these cool houses, historic houses, turning them into like these
Wow.
experience-based Airbnbs, just your standard long-term rentals for investors and providing, excellent housing for people that lived in those areas. And so that took its toll. We grew that. I think within the first year we had 125 houses, and then year two about the same. So now 300 houses. COVID hit at that time, but we still, we navigated that. And that was a fun adventure for anyone that was investing around then and had
Oh, yes, I
long-term
remember.
rentals. So yeah, it was just a fantastic ride. I'm out of the business now. I got bought out, and I am so blessed for that. It ended because, and I'm not going to get into too many details, but my partner and we brought on a third partner. We disagreed about the fundamentals of where we wanted to take the business, which we had conversations about that at the beginning. And that's an important thing with any partnership is guys and gals need to be on the same page with where you want to go. Not just say it, but have your actions show it. Because I wanted that business ultimately to be a cash flow business for us. Get a bunch of properties, get them seasoned, refinance them into a commercial loan, and now we're living off cash flow. He wanted it to be more of a turnkey operation, and that's what it ultimately became, was I want the money now. I want essentially another job. And for me, I did not want another job. I wanted to build up that passive income. So we ended up parting ways, but it was just another great experience. My universe expanded so much. I never thought I would do hundreds of flips, go around the country doing it, being able to talk to people about things like that. And trust me, it wasn't pretty at all times. I remember going down to Georgia one time. Our entire staff down there, we fired pretty much within a week, like everybody, because things started to go a little wonky, a little sideways. People weren't checking in, people were covering things up. And so it was a very great learning experience once again. And I am so blessed to have had that opportunity because it just has made me a better person. It's made me a better investor, and it's made me a much, much better businessman as well.
So much gold in that conversation there. And folks, just to hone in on something that Ace said here at the end, partnerships are great and they're essential because they're gonna challenge you to expand your mind and look at things differently than you would on your own. And I am actually one of 5 partners in our company, and it is a wonderful thing. We all do something different. You don't partner with someone who's just like you, right? Typically, you partner with complements, not supplements, and you hire supplements. You partner with complements. And that complementary person or people, right, they're going to expand your mind and think about things in different ways. And then you also have to recognize that vision and being aligned with where that business is going is just like a marriage, right? Partnerships are just like marriages, except they're harder and more expensive to get out of in most cases. So think about it that way. But you wouldn't marry someone without thinking, well, does this person want 4 kids and a house and a white picket fence? Or do they want to be single and live in Manhattan, on in Soho? I mean, you're going to have those conversations. And so do that, but then also recognize relationships are for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that it's okay, whichever one it winds up being. In this case, the partnership was for a season, and it was a great season. Looks like they did very well together. And then ultimately it wasn't for a lifetime. So, recognize that. But one other thing I wanted to ask you, Ace, is, you mentioned that as you were running these companies in different parts of the country. So we're talking Cincinnati's, the Midwest, Columbus, Georgia's, and mid lower Georgia, I forget.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
of
an hour
course,
and a half south.
south and Nashville as well. So these are not like an hour drive away; they're pretty far away. And so, it sounds like you had a couple of learnings there. One is you had to make sure you reacted quickly. So in the case of Columbus, something started going wrong, and within about a week, you cleaned house and started over because you realized that wasn't the right group of people. What other, I guess, am I right in saying that you realized you had to move quickly? Because I think some people are a little more cautious. It's like they're really quick to bring people in and really slow to let them go. And it's almost got to be the opposite, right? What are your thoughts on that?
So this is a recurring theme throughout my journey is anybody can give you lip service. Anybody can talk. But when somebody talks to me, I don't see their mouth moving. I look at how their feet move, because anybody can tell you anything. People can sell you on anything, but it's really what's the action behind it, because actions, as they say, actions speak louder than words. So I was told this, I was told that, I was getting photos of this, photos of that. And then when I go down there, you just ask questions and listen. You don't berate them and all this story that I worked up in my head. I was just like, all right, you say you're doing this, show me. Show me that you're doing this. And they couldn't. And me knowing construction, I would go under a house, look at the plumbing, I'd look at the electrical, I'd look at the structural work. It's with my knowledge base, it's very easy for me to tell from a construction standpoint what's going on, because the buying part of it was going fine. The selling part of it was going fine. And that was also on me. I cannot blame my partners for what happened down there, but I can take responsibility for it. So I went down there and things did not line up. That trust was broken. People would literally be lying to my face. And the reason I knew they were lying is because I would see their actions or the results of their actions. A good tree is going to bear good fruit. A bad tree is going to bear bad fruit. It's as simple as that. And so I felt fine canning everybody. One thing about me in my businesses, my old mentor, my old boss at that construction company would make me fire all the all the employees. And I went in with it with a very simple mindset. If you're not performing, you're cheating the company and every family member in that company. Everyone that works for that company is being cheated by you, and their families are being cheated by this person. So I've never had issues with letting people go, because it's good for both parties. Hopefully that person, by getting canned, learns, hey, it's me. That doesn't always happen, but you know what? Maybe at some point they would. So yeah, it wasn't obviously the easiest thing. I enjoyed working with these people. I love Georgia. I love the people there. I love the times that we had, that we shared. But at the same time, I'm not going to let that destroy something that we've created that supports so many other people. We're talking, we had a staff of a few dozen people. Like, it was not a small operation. So yeah, it sucks. But you got to take responsibility. You got to, put your big boy pants on and do what you have to do. And so I went down there. I did what I needed to do, hired all new crews, set a better expectation, set better processes, and then just continued on.
That's the way to do it. And like you said in the beginning, relationship and reputation are really all you have. And once you break trust, the reputation's gone. It takes a long time to build, and you can lose it in an instant. So, folks, think about that. Make sure that you are, more cautious when bringing people in, and when things are not working and the actions are not aligning with words, get them out, because that will be a drain on the company, be a drain on the business, and it is unfair to all those high performers you have working for you. So, Ace, I want to pivot to one more topic before we go to the Quattro questions here in the end. We've talked about your move from employment into owning a solopreneur business into creating a high turnover but high cash generating business through flipping. But you did mention that your vision was long-term cash flow. That's ultimately where we separated from the other partners. Let's talk about where you are today with that vision and why you wanted to move from what you were doing, generating cash, to moving into cash flow. So how have you made that transition, and why did you make that transition?
Yeah. So essentially what had happened is we agreed on a buyout. That's when I got into development. One of the biggest mistakes I've made, and I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but they talk about investors having the shiny object syndrome, where we just see a shiny object. And at that point, I bought a piece of land to build some short-term rentals on here in Nashville. And I was interviewing contractors at the time, and I wasn't too thrilled with the contractors that I interviewed. And so I said, you know what these guys would get paid to do this job, that's what I would make in a year's worth of salary. So I'm just going to get my GC license, start building, and picked up about a dozen other projects all at the same time. And then I found myself, essentially within a month, full-time contractor. So engineering went to the site at that time, had a phenomenal time building with my partners. The best part of it too, I had no money in any of the deals because I brought on some limited partners who brought the cash. I brought the time, I brought the skill set, and they brought the treasure. And so that was amazing. Learned a lot about ground up construction, had a great time. Lots of ups and downs there too, right? Setting the right expectation, holding people accountable. But I learned a lot, made a good amount of money doing that as well. And yeah, I couldn't have been happier from that. And then transition to what I'm doing now is I'm kind of full circle again. Went back into engineering, building up that business. And it has been so much fun to build it from a business owner standpoint rather than a business solo entrepreneur. I've got people working with me, people that I've just seen it from a completely different route. And it's funny because I'm just like, man, I can make so much money and influence and change so many people's lives with the engineering business. But I was like wanting to do a million different things. So essentially I've got short-term rentals that bring in cash flow. I'm building the engineering business to buy more rentals. So I'm still working on that, building up that cash flow. But right now, between the engineering business, my short-term rentals, and we haven't even got into the whole podcast studio that I run as well. But that allows me to really stay focused. I've got 3 things in my life that I'm going to be focusing on in the next 3 years. Number 1, get remarried and start a family. Number 2, run the engineering business and grow that. Take that money, put it into rentals. And then number 3 is really this podcast studio that if anybody's watching via video, you could see the backdrop behind me here.
That's great stuff. And I love that you had the vision of where you're trying to go. And folks, this is the blueprint here. So whether I'm going to make it very simple. Whether you do it by being an active investor or a passive investor, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get there different rates, right? But for one thing is have something that generates you cash. For many, that's a W-2 job or a 1099 or something. For some, it's a solopreneur business that may turn into a larger business, right? Take that cash, put it into things that you can use other people's time and labor to multiply under your control, i.e. in Ace's case, it was flipping houses and then building houses and things of that sort. He's leveraging other people's time with the money he's made to multiply that money into more things and do good in the world, because he's also creating good product for people in Nashville, right? And then in the end, you've made some money. You either got to keep that train going because you're going to spend some money. You either got to keep that train going or you got to flip it over to something that's cash flowing. For Ace, that is his Airbnbs. It's probably going to be his structural engineering business now that it sounds like he's building that up more than just himself, right, as well. So that's the blueprint, folks. Whether you do it actively or passively on the investment side, generate your cash, put your cash to work, make it multiply, and then make it start multiplying regularly. So that's it. Folks, before we let Ace get back to his busy empire at this point. Let's talk through the Quattro questions real quick. So Ace, first one, what is your superpower and how does it serve you well?
It's called Super Design. I ask all my guests what their would. One of my superpowers is focus. Now, I've never been diagnosed with ADD or anything like that. However, I strongly believe that what we perceive as our weaknesses are our greatest strengths. And I've always been able to focus so intently on things. My ex-wife would always tell me when we were married, like, it was very difficult for her to break my focus. And she's like, just pay attention to me. But I would be so engrossed in what I was doing. And the great thing about that is I've taken what some would consider a disability, and I use that as a superpower, because when I'm focused on something, I can make a lot happen in a little bit of time. And so I harness that. And I understand too that I have to be careful with that superpower. It could be used for good or for evil. And so with my personal relationships and even business relationships, I've taught myself how to breathe.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Ace. And you know, folks, there's a great book out there called Deep Work. And what he just said right there, it talks about the power of focus and how, man, if you just like people won't do this. People context shift all the time. You look at their calendars and people say they're focused, but you look at your calendar and it really tells the true story of what you're doing. If you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting and it's all about different stuff and you're never batching work, and like, for example, podcasts. When I record podcasts, I batch it. I have a block of these. I got a little bit of margin in between, so I don't feel stressed to get there, but I'm batching them. When I'm doing deep financial work or when I'm doing something related to the business, I'm like, okay, what can go in this context? And let me compartmentalize my brain and shut it off. You got to control the noise in your brain. It sounds like Ace has a great gift at that. So flipping it over, you know, and you've been so gracious at providing us some of your kind of scars and stripes along the way. But if I had to ask you, man, what is your biggest failure? Could be life or business. It's your choice. But most importantly, what did it teach you?
A lot of failures, personal failures that I've talked about, business failures that I've talked about. I don't look at any of those as actual failures. Everything has taught me a lesson. Everything has pushed me to have a stronger connection with my creator, have a stronger will, a stronger mission. So everything that could be seen as a failure has actually propelled me forward. I would say I don't have a biggest failure. However, when I don't really take care of myself or I let things discourage me, those little failures, letting them accumulate and believing those lies are true that I tell myself, that I make up in my mind, those are the things that I struggle with the most at times. And those are the things that if I listen to those lies, if I listen to that inner voice, I call them saboteurs. If I listen to them and then I'm starting to act in a way that is in line with those lies, that's when I'm failing. That's when I'm failing. But thankfully, I have people in my life. I have a group of men, my mentor, my tribe, that really can help me course correct. And so the more time I'm spending with them, the more time I'm spending helping other people, getting out of myself, that's when I'm not letting those voices dictate my life. So I don't have any big failures. You could say the divorce is a failure. Businesses that have gone under have been failures, but they've just made me stronger. It's listening to that devil, that saboteur. That's when I'm failing.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. And it's, you know, it when you stack the failures together and you listen to the saboteur, that's where it really starts to affect your mindset and you can spiral. And I mean, folks, one of my favorite, so like I do this thing called positive mental nutrition. It's what one of my coaches tells me about, a guy of Atlanta. And I have a little reminders list. There's actually an episode I did around New Year's Day on this, folks. If you want to go back and check it out, New Year's Day 2024. But one of my favorite videos right now, it's talking about Albert Einstein. It talks about back when he was teaching a class, and he gets up in front of the class and he starts writing the multiplication tables out. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, all the way out to 9 times 9 is 81, except he wrote 9 times 9 is 80, right? And the class breaks out in laughter and they start to make fun of him. And so he just sits quietly and he waits until the end. And when the class dies down, he says, despite the fact that I answered all these problems correctly, no one congratulated me. But you know what they did do? The one mess up that I made was what they brought to my attention. And they started to focus on and jeer on. And folks, that is what the world will do to you. So what Ace just said there is wisdom, because if you're going to make mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. That's it. The only one who will never fail is the one who never tries. And so if you are doing all the right things and you're having wins, well, that's great. No one's going to care. What they are going to focus on and try to bring you back down to their level is when you make that mistake. So don't let them stack. Don't listen to the saboteur. I love that you said that, Ace. So going to question number 3, philanthropy. We at Quattro are really big on philanthropy. It's one of our 4 pillars. We have people, property, profits, and philanthropy, and that is coming back and taking care of people. So I love to give my guests a chance to just talk about your philanthropic heart, where you're giving your time, your talents, your treasures. I know you sprinkled some of that in there in this show, but I just love to hear it intentionally right here. And if it is, something where donations are accepted, please mention it, because I've actually had reports of people listening to this show and then commenting that they have gone and donated to this cause that resonated with them internally. So what is that for you, Ace?
Yeah. So within the most tumultuous point of my life, going through the divorce, financial hardship, all of that, because of so many different factors, there's everything was hitting me all at the same time. It really got me to reflect on what I'm doing that's actually making a change in the world, actual people's lives, real estate, yes, and just all important, but I wanted it. And there was a group that I became a, it's a nonprofit out of Texas. It's called Operation Rescue Children. I'm on the board of directors now. I give my time, my talents, and my treasure to this group. And essentially what they do is they train the operators that go into the darkest places of the world to stop things like human trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, all of this human exploitation. And they do a phenomenal job of it. You can go to their website, operationchildren.org. Joining that organization has just changed my life. Seeing these operators, I've met them. These Texas Rangers are some of them. Some of them are on SEAL Team 6, local law enforcement. It's absolutely insane. I've met these people and just talk about stoic men, right? Guys that see some of the worst things you can possibly imagine. But then they have to, 1, be trained so they can take these people down. But 2, they need to come back home to, 1, come back home to their family, first of all, so they need to be trained well enough that they actually live through these operations they go on. But 2, they need to learn how to be a loving husband, a loving father, and take all of their, what I call dangerousness, those skill sets that they have, and be able to come home and be that loving husband and father, being that person of their community. And we do all of that for these operators. It's changed the entire trajectory of where I want to go in my life. And we do it both here in the US, and we do it also in other countries like Nepal and places like that. Wonderful organization.
Yeah, I can't say enough about organizations like that. We also support an organization like that, a different one called Marisi, but it is messing with someone's freedom. I mean, it is just the worst thing you can do. And doing that for a child is just even lower. So thank you for everything you do there on behalf. And folks, that link will be in the show notes. So all you've got to do is scroll down wherever you're listening to this, and it'll be right there for your clicking pleasure. So last question before we let you get back to your day, Ace. What is your shameless plug for the day? I want to hear what you're working on, what you have for our listeners. You mentioned a podcast. I know there's a book out there. Tell us about all the ways you're giving back and where people can find them.
Yeah, if you want to download my book for free, I wrote a book about a year and a half ago. It's great. It's all about the nervous system. People call it biohacking, but it's really, I just say it's using God's given gifts and changing yourself from the inside out to change the world. That is on my website, superherobydesign.com. It's free. Download the ebook. You could check out my podcast also, Superhero by Design. And the thing that I'm really excited about, that I'm pushing really hard now, is right here in my house. It's a podcast studio. Website is podcast.house. And we get a lot of local people here, or people coming into Nashville, getting to record them here. I'm producing a lot of podcasts now, both here in Nashville and all across the US. And really, this is my favorite thing that I'm doing right now, because people get to talk, people get to communicate and open themselves up to make the world a better place. But the podcast, just podcasting in general, is so important today. If you want to have a bigger brand, you want to increase social media presence, you want to sell a product or a service, like podcasts today are absolutely necessary. And I used to be in this realm for the past year and a half, and now have a studio. Who did I have in the studio the other day? Randall Cobb, very famous Pro Bowl wide receiver, just a great guy. I got to get him to come here. I met another guy, Dr. Wang, recently. I had him on a show, and he's a surgeon here in Nashville that is just doing amazing things all over the world with people's eyes. He has a movie coming out Memorial Day weekend through Angel Studios called Sight. And so Dr. Wang, just an amazing human being. And I love podcasting because I get to talk to people like you, Chad, and I get to share my story, but also learn about other people as well. And so, yeah, podcast.house. I can produce shamelessly, I can produce your podcast. I can do that remotely, or if you're ever in town, or if you live here in Nashville or the Nashville area, come out. It is an absolute amazing experience getting to connect with other people.
I love it. I couldn't have said that better myself. That's why I'm on the airwaves. That's why you're here. And folks, think how lucky you are right now. Back in the day, it was books. You wanted to learn something. My partner Mo talks about it. When he was learning about this stuff, 30 years ago, he went to the library and found a book on it. It's the best thing you could do. Books are great, but they're usually 3 to 5 years out of date. And you can get to a book faster now, but it takes longer to finally sit down, write it out, write down what you've learned. Whereas here, I can hit record. I can have a 30-minute conversation, send it to my dude, and a couple days later, it is up on the airwaves for your digesting. So, folks, thank you for listening to the show today. If you liked this at all, if this gave you value, think of 1 or 2 people to share it with. Hit that share button, like it, subscribe it, just interact with it so the algorithm says, hey, I like this show. I should show it to more people. All right. Ace, thanks for coming on the show today, brother. We really appreciate your time, your talents, your knowledge. It's a great conversation, my man.
I appreciate you, man. I got to get you over here on the east side sometime soon.
Anytime. All right, folks, this has been another episode of the Real Estate Runway podcast. Until next time, over and out.
We hope this episode was insightful and brought value to your day. If so, please be awesome and leave us a 5-star review. Find out how Team Quattro can help you at thequattroway.com and scroll down for more info. Until next time, this is the Real Estate Runway podcast.